This is Metabolic Radio, the podcast dedicated to keeping you informed when it comes to everything fitness. My name is Taylor Empey, and with the help of my co-host Shane Pace, we aim to expose the truths about the health and fitness industry. The information and suggestions given in this podcast should not be considered as clinical or medical advice. Consult with a physician before implementing any information provided on this podcast. Surely.
Let's do it.
So, Shane.
Yes, sir.
We need to talk about doctors. Did you turn your phone on?
Just continue on.
We need to give the listeners undivided attention.
I know. It just was sounding off.
Okay. Put it on sound. So, doctors, okay, and nutritional training that they receive. I think it's important to discuss this because people resort to going to their doctor, obviously for health reasons, but especially when it comes to nutritional advice, weight loss, those kind of things. And not to say that doctors aren't educated in things that will obviously positively benefit someone's diet or their weight loss goals or their health, obviously, because they are health professionals. But my concern is that when you go to a traditional, let's say an MD, medicinal doctor, before you get really referred out to a specialist or potentially referred out to a dietitian or something, how much nutritional training does that doctor really have? And is that adequate enough for them to really be giving advice to their patients?
Yeah, and I'm looking at some two studies that you actually just sent me.
Yeah, and what's interesting about them is that the results pretty much show that both doctors and instructors and the people conducting the studies feel that nutrition education for at least non-specialized doctors, to my understanding, is inadequate. And do you have the numbers pulled up on there?
Gosh, I got some more numbers than I was expecting to pull up, actually.
I've got them on the computer, but...
let's not pull those up there.
I mean, my main concern with it is that...
Have you looked at the tables?
I haven't yet.
Wow, dude. Okay, so look at this. Look at that. So the problem is in the first 2 years...
Oh, yes. No, I did look at this.
Yeah, yep. in year one... So let's go to the doctor specifically, because I was actually looking at more... Because I didn't expect that.
Yeah. So pretty much what we're looking at two specific studies that were conducted where they surveyed multiple medical schools across the country, hundreds of medical schools. Well, it was about 136. You got to turn that off.
I'm working on it.
They surveyed about 100 something medical schools, asked them what their nutritional curriculum consisted of. Asked them how many courses were required in terms of nutrition education for doctors, if were required at all. And there were some schools that didn't require any nutritional training for their education. It was optional, or they had courses available, but they weren't requisite courses. And some of the numbers were actually really interesting. So I'll pull up.
Kind of crazy. I almost want to use the word scary.
In my opinion, it is scary because we look to doctors as people who know much about the body and the physiology and nutrition, and a lot of people go to their doctor to look as their first resort for weight loss, because personal trainers aren't covered on your insurance, and so they go to their doctor for weight loss and nutrition advice because they can their health insurance can cover it.
Where is this study from?
Okay,
let's start off with that, because this is actually showing some stuff that I think is pretty informative, if you will.
So this study is called The State of Nutrition Education at U.S. Medical Schools, and it was conducted by Kelly M. Adams, W. Scott Bush, I think that's pronounced, and Martin Colmier.
Okay, so that's that.
They're from the Department of Nutrition, the School of Medicine, and Gillings School of Global Public Health at the University of North Carolina. So I found was most interesting, I mean, if we kind of filter through all the main information when we go to the results, it says the responding medical schools, so they sent out a bunch of surveys, okay? Actually, I'll read the whole thing. During 2012 to 2013 academic year, 141 U.S. medical schools were fully or provisionally accredited by the LCME. Only information about the 133 schools with a fully operational 4-year curriculum at the time of the survey is included in this report. A total of 121, 91%, medical schools responded to the survey.
Which is impressive in and of itself.
That is quite a good response rate, yeah. So that's the majority of these medical schools. They required questions pertaining to the total amount of required nutrition across the 4 years, and thus all respondents completed this part of the survey. A vast majority of schools that required nutrition education answered the part of the survey asking where they required nutrition instruction and where it occurs in the curriculum. How much is taught? The responding medical schools reported that they provided, on average, 19 hours of nutritional education with a standard deviation of 13.7 hours and a median of 17 hours. So the average was only 17 hours of actual nutritional training. Over a third of the responding medical schools, which was about 36%, reported requiring 12 or fewer hours of nutritional instruction. 12 of those institutions, only 9%, required none, zero nutritional training. Less than a third, about 29%, of the responding medical schools reported that they provided at least 25 hours of nutrition education across the 4-year curriculum. So, I mean, that gives you plenty of numbers.
Yeah, but look at the nutritional lines
right here
above. Yeah, look at the hours based off of that, because we're talking 13 hours of nutritional instruction.
I mean, but so if you look at that main bulk number of a whole third of them of these schools only requiring 12 or fewer nutrition instructions, nutritional instructional hours, and the first number of about the median only being about 17 hours of nutritional training. That's not even a full day's worth, 24-hour window of training.
To me, like as I'm saying, look at the top one. It shows 22 hours, 22.2, which is still crazy.
Yeah,
with the
level
of expertise.
You want to know what that is? It's about one semester.
Yeah.
It's about one semester of one class of nutritional training. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, you and myself, with our own personal research, with our certifications, and my nutritional education, we've already got way more hours than that. Oh, yeah. Now, I'm not necessarily trying to toot my own horn, but what I'm saying is I'm trying to prove a point that doctors are not nearly as nutritionally educated as you think they are.
Well, they're not experts in nutrition.
Exactly. They're MDs, they're medicinal doctors. They study physiology and how the body functions, and then they study medicine and drugs and how drugs affect the body.
Yep.
And so if you have a condition that requires, Western medicine and treatment in that fashion, then that's their thing. That's their forte. But actually, do you have the one where instructors were requesting
that was the one I was looking at
that more nutritional education be given to doctors because they felt that it was inadequate?
That was this one right here.
Try and pull that one up. But that's interesting is that there's also evidence that instructors of these courses and doctors themselves do not feel that their training in nutrition is adequate to help their patients. And that's just the people that are expressing concern. There probably are some doctors that don't feel as educated but are kind of worried to express that to patients. They probably don't want to say, I don't feel, adequately trained to educate you on nutrition. Well, and hopefully they would refer out to this.
But they usually don't. They're the experts in
quotes.
In quotes, right.
Of health.
That you're going to because they're the experts in health. And I'm not hacking. I mean, I've got friends that are pretty good doctors, actually, but I'm not hacking doctors for it. But that's their perspective is that they're the go-to guys.
Yeah.
So why would they even push it out?
And
usually?
Also,
usually,
I don't want to discredit. I don't want to discredit doctors themselves either.
No,
I've trained doctors and anesthesiologists and a lot of different kinds of doctors, and they're very intelligent people. But it's funny and I've trained nurses too. It's funny when you train these traditional medical health professionals, how little they know in terms of fitness and nutrition. They know how the body works, but they don't look at it through that lens. They don't look at it through proper nutrition and diet and fat loss and body composition and healthful training and developing your body in the proper ways when you're pursuing a fitness goal.
Well, let's talk and take differences of Eastern and Western medicine. Okay. In the Eastern look, like the Chinese look on it, doctors don't get paid unless you're healthy.
Yes, I love this point that you've
that is the exact opposite, because they don't get paid anything if you are healthy in the United States.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're justifying,
because when you go to see a doctor, you go because you're ill, but if you get better, you don't go back.
Right.
You don't buy drugs.
Right.
You don't continue to see them. You don't pay co-pays. Because we live such a healthy lifestyle, we eat really well. We both exercise. We tend to live fairly balanced lifestyles as much as we can. I'll tell you, man, I have not been to the doctor for anything besides running my blood work once a year because I'm curious about where my levels are with testosterone and my cholesterol and things like that. I already know I'm perfectly healthy. But in 6 years, ever since, and remember, I used to smoke. I used to smoke a half pack of cigarettes a day. So 6 years ago, before I got into fitness and got certified as a trainer and quit smoking and doing all that, that I haven't gone to the doctor in those 6 years for anything other than normal checkups for myself. And they've come back perfectly clean, perfectly great, fine, And so doctors are not making money off of me. In fact, I'm just paying for medical insurance now, or health insurance now, because it's the law, and that's it. So I'm just losing money because of that. But so it's interesting that you bring up
that's
that
another
point.
ball of wax that we won't talk about today.
Sure.
But yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying is, in my opinion, I mean, holistic medicine, which is more towards what I looked at, being in massage therapy and even through martial arts, you learn a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm sure you do to an extent, because they talk about, acupressure points and all that kind of stuff for strikes purposes in most martial arts, but the same concept. Their viewpoint is to take a natural look at it and to use it as the medicine. Mm-hmm. Your body is the healing point. Medication never heals the problem. It just makes it so the body has more opportunity to heal the problem. Mm-hmm. And so...
Well, and we know that medicine, and when we talk about Western medicine, drugs, they treat symptoms, they don't treat sources.
And I always use the term, they're Band-Aids to the problem.
Yeah.
Because they almost never... Like I said, they don't... All right, I'll step back 2 steps and say... What I used to tell people about massage therapy is, in my opinion, massage therapy should be the number one thing that people use for health and fitness, as far as making themselves feel better. Okay. That being said, when somebody's in a car accident, you want somebody rubbing on their arm.
Yeah,
that's retarded. Yeah. So you want to have a Western-based
doctor, because
doctor.
we're talking about Western medicine being used for acute trauma or conditions.
Yeah, which it is perfect.
That's what it's designed for, really.
Exactly right.
It's not a good long-term solution for chronic issues,
right?
Because the things that prevent and treat chronic issues, for the most part, are good diet, good amount of exercise and activity, recovery, sleep, balanced lifestyle, healthy psychology.
Sure.
And though we have drugs that impact those things, they're treatments. They're not what's the word? They're not what.
They're not cures.
Yeah. They like you said, the Band-Aid mentality.
Yeah. So here's another thing to even think on. So since we're talking nutrition on this specifically, what is one of the biggest feeders of cancer in your body? Cancer cells. Do you know? What feeds it? What keeps it alive? What keeps it growing? Or is known to?
Okay, I think off the top of my head.
And yes, I am talking a little fringe because I'm not going to be scientific about this, but sugar.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If you cut sugar out and you go to a ketogenic diet, it doesn't necessarily kill the cancer cells, but it stops its progression. It slows it. And so in my opinion, on a nutritional look, if somebody has cancer, the first thing I would think is go to ketones.
Interesting. See, I haven't looked very much at all at different cancers and how that all works.
Glucose,
that's
glucose
where that's not coming to top of mind.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Glucose is the main fuel source for cancer cells. And
most organisms feed off of sugars.
Oh, absolutely. That's why
bacterias and
and I'm Shout out to Rose. To go off her mentality on
Rose
some of the
Spector
stuff.
from the forum.
Yeah. She keeps bringing to light that we shouldn't demonize foods, and I'm going to say that's true. I'm
for the most part. I'm a little torn on that issue because there are foods that have the actual benefits to them.
Yes,
and there are some foods that have
negative connotations,
no benefits, or have consequences.
And I wouldn't use
or
the word
fewer benefits.
I would agree with that.
And because sugar can be leveraged in many ways,
that's what I'm saying.
Positive results, and that's true.
Sure, energy,
like
quick bursts of energy for sure.
Yeah, I mean that. Why else would there be sugars in fruits and be a sustainable energy source and that kind of thing? But I love that she has brought to light. She's kind of playing the devil's advocate, where we make a statement about sugar, and she's like, "Well, what about this point? What about this side?"
Sure.
And that makes sense, and I love that because it creates a cool dialogue.
Sure.
But I think with where our society is, I think in the natural sense, she has some really good points. But I think with where our society is, and how big of an issue sugar is in our society, I think that's where.
Oh, I agree with that too.
I tend to sometimes demonize sugar, even though, like I said, it can be beneficial when utilized correctly and in moderation. But I don't think people understand what real balance and moderation is.
Right. I agree with that. Moderation is definitely key to this anyway. If you're going to throw sugars out there, without question, moderation is a big thing. You keep bringing up that sugar movie.
That sugar film.
Yeah. It points out a lot of the reasons why processed sugars, especially, should be demonized.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that all the research that has been coming out is validating the point that sugar is absolutely a big cause of a lot of our obesity issues, a lot of our sicknesses, our diseases. Mm-hmm. Diabetes is linked to it heavily. The newest ones that are coming out, like I think we've talked about this a little bit before, if not, you and I have talked a lot, but is Alzheimer's and dementia, because those have been linked now to diabetes and a problem with blood sugar.
That's where the ketogenic diet has shown a lot of benefits in individuals with many different kinds of cognitive issues and conditions.
Yep.
Seizures, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, just to name a few.
Oh yeah.
And so it's interesting how, I mean, it just makes sense that nutrition should be the first thing that people go to for correcting chronic or acute, some acute conditions for their body. And I feel it's hard because people don't know this, and so they think, okay, I'm ill or something is wrong, I'm going to go to my doctor.
Right.
And then they go to their doctor, who could refer them to a registered dietitian or nutritionist who is more educated in nutrition. And I think they have enough education to recognize that the doctors have enough education to recognize, hey, this might be something we can fix with nutrition. Mm-hmm. But are they adequately educated to actually follow through with that type of education? And it sounds like that's not the case, at least in my opinion. Now knowing how many hours of training they have,
I was going to say, take the studies.
Going into the doctor, I'm more educated in nutrition than my general physician.
Well, let's step back.
Which is scary.
Let's step back to books. Okay, so a lot of people give grief to some of these researchers because they were in the news organization, let's say, or they're novelists, and so they go through, they do all this research. They have more understanding by far than most of the people that are coming back and saying you aren't educated in this.
Yeah,
and that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
to me.
Yeah,
that's like I said.
Well, and for example, actually, back shouting out to Rose, was she had referenced a guy, I don't remember his name now, but I followed through on the article and went to his website, and he has an MBA and he's like a journalist, but he's a fitness journalist, and all he does is do research and write articles about nutrition.
Yeah.
And over his career, I'm sure he's gathered more information as well, even though his qualifications don't say that. His personal research and what he's learned, he's way more qualified in nutrition.
Well, and the guy that actually did the Twinkie diet, that I don't know if you noticed I brought that up.
I saw you post something about that.
Yeah, the Twinkie diet is one that he ran based on calories.
Yeah.
And granted,
just calories in, calories out, regardless of nutrient content.
No, he ate Twinkies. I mean, he didn't eat exclusively Twinkies, which is the way it's represented.
Yeah.
He ate things like salads. He did take protein shakes to keep his protein levels up. And what was the other
And what
thing?
was the point of the study?
The study was to basically prove that you could sustain yourself and keep
on macronutrient, but not necessarily
on
micro.
on calorie intake.
Yeah.
It was based on caloric, and so he lost weight.
So the goal was to get into better quote unquote shape via weight loss.
Right. The funny thing is, he works for a university. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I just actually read and watched some stuff on him where he was interviewed, but he didn't do it at home. He wouldn't bring this basically home because he didn't want his kids eating this way.
Yeah.
He was very concerned that was going to be one of the effects, is that it was going to justify them eating however the crap they wanted to.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting about it was, did it work? Yes. Is he getting healthier? Without question, he is, because he lost fat. You lose fat, you get that kind of stuff. You get healthy benefits from that. Do I think that he ate in such a way to sustainably be healthy? No way.
But see, you say he did have vegetables in his diet. He did take protein supplements to sustain lean mass.
To an extent, the majority was still based on sugar.
And you don't, the way that the articles sometimes are portrayed, at least initially, guy loses weight on Twinkie diet, that's sensationalized in a sense that you don't know that he's still eating micronutrient-dense foods and adequate protein to sustain lean mass. And so, of course, that's going to show favorable results. What's going to happen if he only ate Twinkies? Truly, that's all he ate for that.
That brings up another thing. That brings up another thing. Okay, and here's the thing. And I'll ask you this straight up: what do you need to sustain life?
Nutrients.
Well, once.
Well, many of them.
I know that, but three main ones. Okay, because you have the three main ones, the three big titles. Fats,
your
proteins, and carbohydrates.
Yeah.
What do you need?
You're
to
talking
sustain
macros,
life?
not micros.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you need to sustain life?
Proteins and fats.
You don't need carbohydrates at all.
Yeah.
You can cut them completely out of your diet, 100%, and live healthy.
Yeah.
It isn't necessarily the most optimal way to live, and we've discussed that. And that's
because then it's still macronutrient wise, energy wise. Yeah, it's sustainable. Is it a lot harder to get your micronutritional value out of that? It can be for some people. It can be.
Okay, for some people.
If they don't know what nutrients are in
No,
certain foods.
absolutely, that's true. That's true.
It's doable.
Well, and I'm going to tell you that once you change to a ketogenic type diet and you're living on pretty much ketones, you have high energy. You know this from experience.
Well,
now.
you and I have been experimenting with this for a while.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. You have high energy. You're not going to break down because your energy state are more sustainable. Mm-hmm. Carbohydrates are an up and down energy source, so your fats are actually one that are more sustainable and they're longer lasting. As soon as your body transfers over to that and is running on ketones, your body reacts in a more healthy way.
Yeah.
Okay, and so living on a Twinkie diet, you take out all the proteins and all the fats almost to an extent. Not all the fats. A lot of fats are still in there, but you cut out proteins almost completely. That's why he had to supplement with protein shakes. He would have died.
Yeah.
It would have killed him.
That's true. That makes sense.
So that's what I'm saying, though. And he's a researcher that's a high-level researcher. He knew what he was doing, and that's the reason why he did it the way that he did it. But the point of this, in my opinion, is you look around, you look at all the stuff surrounding it. He didn't want other people that he cared about getting involved in this kind of diet. He didn't want to make it a justification for people. He was trying to make an example.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
And that's like I keep bringing up, and I don't think you've had a chance to see yet, but Fathead. That's the reason why I keep bringing that up, is because he does a similar thing based on a fast food diet.
Yeah.
But anyway, not to get too peripheral, the whole point is, though, these guys are doing research like crazy. The nutrition that they're coming up with is based on something that's highly educated. Okay, living a Twinkie diet without an education, the person's going to die.
Yeah.
Living it controlled in a controlled environment where they're watching, they're tracking everything, they can do it because they understand the knowledge base behind it.
Yeah.
They have a very large understanding of nutrition. Okay, when you step into a 13 to 22 hour knowledge base, that's unrealistic to think that they have that kind of knowledge base.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust someone that has that kind of knowledge base to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And that's no, I totally agree with you, and that's what's the most concerning thing. So, to me, I just wonder what the next step is for getting doctors to be more educated in nutrition, or fathom this, which would probably be a lot bigger issue. Maybe traditional medicinal doctors don't deal with weight loss clients and nutrition. They just refer out to the proper qualified individuals.
I think that's brilliant. Networking has
at least when it comes to diet, they need. I think it should mend. If a doctor can determine someone's issue is related to their diet or nutritional intake, that right there should just be a clean boundary that says, okay, this is outside my scope of practice. I'm going to refer to X dietitian in the clinic across the hall or down the street or whatever, because they're way more educated in this than I am. I'm comfortable up to a point, but that person's going to do that patient more justice than I can.
Well,
versus just saying, oh, you know what? We can treat this with medicine.
Right.
Why don't I put you on this drug, and that'll lower your cholesterol? Why don't you just eat better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get referred to the right professional and start eating well, because you don't know necessarily how to eat well.
Right. And again, I want to touch on what Mind Pump in one of their episodes was talking about. They brought up the fact that I hate it when someone comes out with exercise routines or a dietary plan that's a doctor, for the simple fact that they're not educated in this. Mm-hmm. You know, it goes as far as as simple as working out in any spa, gym, street, playground. I think that they need to understand that their knowledge base is not geared towards nutrition or exercise.
Yeah.
Giving a suggestion to go out and exercise is great, but if they're putting together a plan, they don't know what they're talking about. It's not their field of expertise. I want to say it was Adam and Sal that were discussing it in Mind Pump, but they were bringing up the point that I started lifting in, like I said, in the mid to late 70s. It was actually towards the late 1970s, and over the course of those years, I've had a lot of information that goes through my head for exercise. A guy that's a doctor is not thinking about that kind of stuff. You've been in the industry for a while, plenty long enough that you've had a lot more experience, because you're thinking about it every day. On a day-to-day basis, you're thinking exercise. A medical doctor is not thinking about that. You go to an emergency room, and they're not thinking it. Why would
they happen to be also a training certified, or be very lift weights themselves.
Absolutely, which is a different beast completely.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, in fairness, that changes the scope of their field, but they're not working towards.
And there could be doctors, because we're not trying to harp on all doctors, but there could be doctors that chose to take all of the elective courses that were in nutrition because they were passionate about that.
Well, and there are guys that specialize in nutrition that are medical doctors, and I agree with that. And don't get me wrong, and I'm not demonizing doctors at all.
But I think that if we're gonna leave that as part of their scope of practice, the standard needs to be elevated dramatically,
substantially, for sure.
Yeah,
because that's crazy. Like I said, I don't want to demonize doctors either at all, because they have a place, and I'm just trying to, on my side of this discussion, my thought process is I want the lines to be drawn for people to understand that if you go to a massage therapist, he's going to lead you toward a healthy lifestyle. If you go to even to a chiropractic, they're going to lead you towards a lifestyle. They're not specialists in their fields beyond that.
Yeah.
But that's what they deal with, right? And so those kinds of things are going to be more homeopathic. They're going to deal with things that are more naturally based, because that's what their field of expertise leans towards. A massage therapist is a nutritionist.
Yeah.
They know somewhat, potentially, because it's part of their schooling, but they don't know, they're not nutritionists.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to say that too. A chiropractor has more understanding of nutrition, but they're not a nutritionist either, no matter how much they may think they are. Mm-hmm. They deal with nutrition through vitamins and things like that, but it's the same scope as a doctor prescribing drugs. Mm-hmm. They have a viewpoint that is minimal. Mm-hmm. And that's, like I said, that's why I want the lines to be drawn. You don't want a massage therapist going out and rub somebody that's bleeding to death, because all it's going to make you do is bleed out and die faster.
Yeah.
You don't want a nutritionist go out there and give them an apple, or you know what I mean, or say, hey, you should probably lean off. Sugars aren't going to do you so good right now while you're bleeding to death next to your car, so you probably might not. You don't want to eat that candy bar while you're dying. That's not who you want to go to. At that point, you want to go to an emergency room. The scopes need to be more realistic in the view of the public. Yeah. And that's the only reason why I like this discussion that we wanted to talk about. This was Taylor's idea. I think this is a great thing to discuss, because I think the scopes need to be understood better.
Yeah. I think one thing, and we'll kind of parallel this, is that concerns me is that personal training is not regulated. I mean,
there's some truth to that.
I mean, you can legally go out, self-declare yourself a personal trainer, and start training clients, and nothing will go wrong unless
You don't have to
unless
true.
a client decides to sue you if you injure them. That would be your only consequence.
And
There's no
technically-
legal regulation for personal training.
Well, you could get technically speaking, if you could find the person that would do it, and I'm sure they're out there. You could get even for that circumstance, you could actually have insurance. You could get insurance.
You can get insured as a non-certified personal trainer.
Sure.
Yeah, you can.
Sure. It would be
and
higher.
So, yeah, the premium would be higher, but there's the simple fact that you can do it. Now, I disagree with that. In retrospect, I mean, I'm grateful because I got into the industry first, but without having a degree, and I did get a national accredited certification.
Sure.
And
Well, I think certification's different.
I think
though.
I think certifications, nationally accredited ones, diploma programs, vocational trainings. I think those types of programs are good because it shows some level of standard. But even still, with that, the only thing with scope of practice that's really taught in personal training, and I don't know if it's taught across the board with all certifications, is that you're not a dietitian. You're not a dietitian. You're not a dietitian.
Yes,
that's
because-
the only thing I've
because
ever
of its
seen
licensed. That's
that
true.
in terms of scope of practice.
It's legality.
Yeah, or maybe some things with like physical therapy, like exercise therapy, where they'd say, "Hey, personal
wording.
trainer, you can do this, but
in wording.
yeah,
That's all wording.
Yeah.
It's just like when you go to a massage therapist and they're sitting down there doing an analysis. They're not diagnosing. You can't legally diagnose as a massage therapist. You can't diagnose when you're talking to a client. When you're a personal trainer, you can assess. Is it the same thing? It is.
It's very gray though.
The gray is the difference in the wording.
Yeah.
It's a verbiage thing, but it's a legality issue.
Yeah, but I think that.
But I see your point on
as
that.
much as I'm grateful, I was able to get into the industry of personal training and get a feel for it before having a degree. I think that there should be some scope of more talk about scope of practice and more talk about setting a certain standard.
Well, and I'll lean towards something that Sal brought up on Mind Pump a while back about what was it on? It was on
I don't know which one you're referencing.
No, I don't know that, dude. Sorry, I apologize for that.
No, it's fine.
It was on supplements. It was on supplements. He was talking about supplements and how it shouldn't be a regulated thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I do feel this to an extent in this as well. It comes down to the market itself will drive it. The only problem that I see as a personal trainer, because I think the risk is higher, is potential injury to justify certification. Otherwise, to be honest, if you get a really good someone who understands the way that programming is set up and understands how it affects people and can actually twist it and make it work for the person correctly, they're a good personal trainer if they're certified or not. The thing is we don't know who to trust.
Yeah,
and that's the reason why
consumer education,
consumer education, watching who you're dealing with. If they do something that's funky, I don't care if they're knowledgeable or not as far as certification, or if the state were to come down and say something. It doesn't matter to me. What it means to me is the person needs to understand what they're looking at as a consumer.
Yeah.
And if the person's bad, you don't go to them, and that kills it. And that's what Sal's.
Well, that makes sense with the conversation we literally just had about supplements in past episodes. Is that the consumer should have the responsibility to do their due diligence on what they're consuming or what they're purchasing, or what service what trainer they're deciding to go to, or what doctor they're deciding to use. But the problem is. I mean, we're in the information age, and there is so much access to information, but understanding which information is correct, because there's so much conflicting information about it. Like, as I was searching for the studies about the amount of education that doctors receive, I was getting all these other blogs of doctors that were trying to debunk it, saying, no, doctors are educated, and that's fine. And some of them made good points, and some of them didn't make good points.
Well, some of them are educated, too.
Yeah, and there might be bias there, and there might not be. And I think it's not a simple black and white issue on that, other than from what the research that I found was that doctors weren't as educated as, in my opinion, I think they should be for the scope of practice.
I don't think they're anywhere near educated enough to make nutritional declarations.
Yeah, but that's what the thing is, when people log on and they Google stuff and start searching, there's so much information out there that it just is like information overwhelm, and they don't know what to believe anymore.
Right,
and that's the only problem with things like supplements not being regulated, and that's fine. Like I can
Okay.
get on board with free market.
But here's what I'll say on that, okay? Because I'm going to tell you that I think supplements should be regulated to an extent. Here's my problem with supplements.
I have a point on that too. So you go first, and then I want to say something.
And we don't want to make this go too long either. But and that's fine. So, but here's the thing I'm going to say about supplements being regulated. It's not a question of I think claims should be realistic. They should be forced to be realistic. They can still say things that have evidence that are anecdotal, in my opinion, for supplements, as long as it's not causing people to get hurt. That's not an issue to me, okay? So it doesn't have to be something like the FDA proven, this is the reaction, blah, blah, blah. That's not an issue to me, okay? But if it's not contained correctly within this supplement, that absolutely should be regulated, and it's not being regulated, and that bothers me.
Yeah. So you're talking about like with proprietary blend?
Proprietary blends, claims that something's in there and it's not, stuff that's left out of the listing.
And that's kind of along the lines of the point. That's the only reason why I think they should be. Yeah, it's kind of along the lines of the point that I want to make, which is I think that a company should be able to produce a product or a supplement that they want.
Right.
I think when it comes to supplementation, they should be mandatorily required to provide a third-party certificate of analysis, and their manufacturing facility should be audited to make sure they're undergoing good manufacturing practices.
Yes, for
those two stipulations, and provide those with every supplement sale as a PDF download. I
agree with that totally.
That solves the whole problem.
I think that
because then it's on the consumer, but the consumer has no. I didn't know what GMPs were until a few months ago.
Right.
I knew what certificates of analysis were.
Right.
But how do you get your hands on one of those? Like, talking to the companies and trying to get your hands on certs of analysis is actually kind of hard. I've been talking to a lot of supplement companies right now because I'm curious about, some supplement things for the future. But you'd be surprised how hard it is for me to get my hands on a certificate of analysis on a product that is on the shelves right now that people that are consuming on a daily basis.
Right. Well, and to bring in why we're discussing this on a doctor's basis, topic is if you're not dealing with nutrition in a deep enough fashion, there's no way you're going to understand supplementation. The educational background, especially supplementation, because it's crazy difficult to understand.
Honestly, I'm surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if this happens in the future, but I'm surprised now that there isn't some form of degree oriented around.
Well, there's homeopaths.
Well, okay, you're right there, yeah.
But there's not many.
But that's not more of like a mainstream.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Pursuit for like medical school.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
I think that should definitely be a thing because you're right. Supplementation is so much more in depth.
It's grandiose
than nutrition itself.
It's a root. A lot of times it's roots. You're digging stuff out of the ground and just throwing it in your mouth. I mean, to actually have an understanding of supplementation is crazy big. So if you have 22 hours of knowledge of nutrition only, there's no way.
And when we're talking nutrition,
light.
We're talking about macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, water, the physiology of certain nutrients, cholesterol. There's like the basic foundational components of nutrition that they're getting educated on. And we're talking the equivalent of one semester as what's required and / the average that the average doctor is getting right now.
Well,
that's
how are they going to know contraindications? How are they going to interactions? They can't know that, and they're talking about stuff dealing with pharmaceuticals on top of that, and the interactions between supplements and narcotics are crazy.
Well, like we talked about in one of our supplement episodes, you don't know when something you eat. Let's say there's a client who's already got health issues. They're on different prescriptions. Mm-hmm. Then they're supplementing because they went to FitCon or whatever, and they've got on some dietary supplement for whatever reason. Then their dietary nutritional intake is different. And then I can't remember if I just said this or not, but then they're on prescription medications. All of those different things intertwined and impacting each other.
Sure,
that's a recipe for something to happen, bad to happen.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think that kind of makes our point to an extent.
Yeah, pretty much. People, the thing you want to pay attention to is that, again, it just comes down to doing your due diligence. But if you're going to your doctor for health advice, that's totally fine, and that should be encouraged within that professional scope of practice,
without question.
And
there's certain things they need to be involved in with it.
Yeah.
See, and I want to add this, and I probably should have said it earlier, but without question, if you're starting into a physical exercise routine of any sort, you want to get checked. and you want
Yes.
it checked by a doctor.
Yes.
Because they can go through and they can analyze all the different breakdowns that could potentially be problemsome in the body. So that's something that a doctor should be involved with.
I recommend my clients get their blood work done
and a blood
every
work
year.
thing is a smart thing anyway.
Yeah.
Granted, that goes through a lab.
You should definitely go get a lot of different. I mean, the more metrics and measurements you can get, the better, because you'll know where you're starting out.
Right.
Checking cholesterol levels, triglycerides, checking hormone profiles, checking your insulin sensitivity and your blood sugar and your testosterone, thyroid, and then getting just a general, weight, body fat percentage. What would be great is to see something like a VO2 max being accessible to people.
Right. I would agree with that.
Different other types of physical stress tests that would help people really know where they're at. I would love to see that.
Sure.
So, But anyway, so people just understand that you want to go to the right professional for the right type of advice. Make sure that they're giving you advice within their scope of practice, and if they're not, go find the right person for you.
Education.
There we have it. See you next time. Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Shane and I hope you learned something new and exciting today about your own health and fitness. Head over to metabolicradio.com. There you'll find our bios and our results-driven programs that are designed to help teach you everything you need to know when it comes to getting real permanent results. You can also sign up for our newsletter to get free weekly updates. To chat with Shane or I, just email us at taylor@metabolicradio.com or shane@metabolicradio.com. We would love to hear from you. You can also join the conversation on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search for Metabolic Radio Private Forum. There you can request to join the group. We would love to add you to the conversation and answer your questions on the show. And hey, if you like our podcast, please help us grow our community by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. We would really appreciate your help. Thanks again so much for all your support and your listenership. Now go out there and spread the good word of fitness.